Alrighty. Okay, so go down to the files that we worked on. So the Photoshop section kind of begins the week of September 30 through October 6th. We've been through the layers panel for the most part. We have not done a whole lot with blending modes, maybe a little bit. We did selections, the multiple selection tools and combinations of selection tools. We worked quite a bit with the healing tool with the eyes, remember last time? So did that. We worked a little bit with the clone stamp. We'll do a little bit more. And we worked with the dodge and the burn tool. More of the burn tool. The dodge tool is good for lightening things. So it's kind of opposite of burn, really. The eyedropper, you've experienced the eyedropper with the foreground color. Gradient tone, so you can either select a color, so black and white's the default. You can select a color to a color for gradient or a color to transparent, which is nice. And filling. Okay, and I think then we submitted the clock tower, right? We got done with that. You submitted that. Okay. So then 7th through the 14th, so we were kind of ahead a little bit, but those are a little bit of an example of the tools we looked at. So we looked at red eyes. Thursday we did Lake North. We have not done Grizz Flag, Rock 2, or USS Bowfin Drain or Rust. So we'll be creating a file today that's this 5-point project. Okay, and then we'll just load that. So go ahead and I'm going to get rid of those files. So download and copy, you know how we do the show and folder, Control-C, Control-V to move to your document area. So do the 4 files, Grizz Flag, Rock 2, Bowfin Drain, and Rust. And they might all be kind of close together here. Control-C, documents. I'll just paste them there. So I'm just putting mine in documents. So let's first start with opening Grizz Huge Flag. This was a while ago, as you can see. But it was pretty cool. So to have a flag that big at Washington Grizzly Stadium was really impressive. Everybody able to access those files okay? Okay.
So this and white.
So yep, Grizz Huge Flag, Rust, Rock 2, and the Bowfin. I just left mine in documents. Yeah. So then when you get this document open, so the first one we'll work with is the flag. Remember, we use the horizontal type tool just to type your name, chose font, size, all that good stuff. So the horizontal and the vertical type tool are exactly the same. There's two other ones that are similar, but they're the type mask tool. And they're pretty fun. You've probably seen all sorts of publications that appear to have an image inside the type. So that's what this is used for. So go ahead and we'll pick the horizontal type mask tool. I think that might work best for this application. So click on that, and then you come into your document area. And by the way, I don't think Chiller would be a good font. So if I want an image to show up inside my type, I want to be sure that I have kind of a fat font. So I want to look through here and choose something that's got some bulk. Broadway is good in that it has some bulk, but it's got thin thick. So we may want to look at something that's thick, you know. I don't know if the black oak is maybe the format I'm looking for. Cooper Black, Cooper Standard is maybe okay. Copper Plate, I really like the font, but I'm not so sure that's going to work either. So I think maybe, you know, Franklin Gothic Heavy might be one that you like as well. I might choose that one. It seems like the letters are close to one another, and it also is a sans serif. So I may want to choose that. Then size-wise, and by the way, I'd probably choose, depending upon the font, it may be regular. You may have the option of bold. You may have some other options, but this one we're just going to use regular. Size-wise, I'm not sure if 150s, mine was left at the last size I chose. That may or may not be perfectly fine. I might just see how it goes. So I'll probably leave mine at 150. And you can choose the alignment if you want to. I'm just going to go ahead and keep mine at left so that it's simple. And then I want to come to the left of my document and then click once. And what you're going to find is some type that's kind of there at 150 points. And then the rest of the screen, it's called Ruby Lith. So this is kind of back to the old printing days. Whatever you masked out, they masked it out with Ruby Lith, kind of a red, deep red, ruby colored, transparent, semi-transparent paper. So if we type what we want, maybe we want, because it's a flag, I don't know, USA, America. America is longer. That gives us more opportunity to manipulate letters.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you want to go to the type tool, the T. Oh, you just start. Oh, okay. You pick the regular type tool. So I would do an edit undo. If you did type something, or
No, I didn't.
oh, okay. So then you can do a Control C or undo or something. Yeah, or delete later. So you have to click hold on the T tool, and you'll find that there's a horizontal type mask tool. It's got little dots around it. So it's kind of an unsolid looking, really, is what it is. And then you can just type your America.
I choose the red. I'm sorry.
Did yours work this time? Okay, so you got it now. So you got yours.
I did. I thought it was here.
So you want this click hold on that one. Yep, click hold on the T, and then use the horizontal type mask tool. Bottom one. See how there's dots around it? Yeah, and then go ahead and click somewhere in the document. We're going to move it in.
There it is.
Yep, and then go ahead and type. So we'll type America.
Thank you.
And so then, if you, obviously the cursor's still here. If we misspell it, we still have the opportunity to go back or change our word or do whatever. But as soon as I click another tool, like click your move tool, the four-headed arrow, as soon as I click that, I've got the marching ants, roving dots, whatever you want to call them, right? And don't do this. If I click and drag out, see what happens? It takes part of my image away. So that's also not what I want to do. And I also might want maybe the flag in here. Maybe I don't want the crowd in here. Or if this is a picture of a crowd, maybe you want to move America up to the crowd. So what we need to be able to do then is transform our selection. So make sure that your America is still marching ants, okay? And then go to select and then transform selection. And you know how we've worked with this before. Because my type is, it looks that way, I don't have to keep it that way. By the way, Control Z that. Remember how we had to hold Shift key, right, to make it tall? Yeah. So they've changed with this particular version. So to make it out of proportion now, like too tall, you need to hold Shift key down and then you can move. And you don't have to make it too tall, but if you want to, you can do that. So Shift key lets you manipulate the height of the letters. And then of course, the sizing handles, you can make it larger, smaller. Then what we really want to do is rotate it and move it. So let's go ahead and find the curly arrow on any of the corners, rotate it, pick it up and drag it around. And again, you may have to size it or rotate it smaller. So my goal in this case, I want to see, and I may have to size it down quite a bit actually. And I'm going to rotate it. I want my stars to be in the image, and I think probably that row is about best. So you can manipulate it around so that you have the stars kind of cruising down there, but I don't want any crowds. So again, I may have to skinny this up a little bit and rotate it around a little bit more. So go ahead and work with yours as to how you like it. And boy, I may have to have maybe more of the rotation than I wanted. I'm still getting a little dot on there. That's probably close enough. So I think I've got only, and again, you can arrow key left, up, down, right? I think I've got, for the most part, it looks like flag and stripes. Okay, then when you're happy with that, you can go ahead and enter key to accept your transformation. Then you're just left with the roving dots, marching ants. So then do a Control C, and let's go to a new file. So File, New. And my clipboard was probably, it's the size of this particular document. I think it's close enough. We'll go ahead and leave it at that. We might, let's make it a little bit easier to, so let's do width of 1600, height of 800. So we'll kind of just make it a little easier. Resolution, we'll leave it as is for now. Background color, I'm okay with leaving it white. We can always change that if we want to. So for now, we'll leave it white. Okay, so it's 1600 by 800. It will end up being a wide orientation, so landscape orientation. Resolution is fine. White background, RGB 8-bit, that's fine. So create that, and it should be kind of a wide document. If I Control V to paste America in here, it's actually quite large, but it pastes in. The reason why it's so big, so if you look at your document sizes here, remember we have a 1600 by 800 document, and I'm looking at this at now 67%. If I go back to my Grizz Huge Flag and I go to image size, this document's 2500 by 1900. So it's not quite double, but in one case a little more than double, and the other not. So that's why when I'm bringing America in, it's humongous. Okay, and I can still rotate it if I want to go to select, and oops, I'd need to reselect it, wouldn't I, because I can't rotate it. So to reselect something easily, there's the tiny thumbnail. Remember the tiny thumbnail on the layer? Control click on that tiny thumbnail. Then I can go to select, transform, and I can rotate that back. And also, I can show a grid. If I really want to get this like precise, I can either draw rules, but I can show a grid beneath it. So show, view, show, and then grid. And then I should be able to get, so it looks like kind of where I'm at. I'm not sure how that happened, but I rotated it pretty darn close. I'm not perfect, but very close. Okay. I feel like every time I try to do a little more, it gets a little worse. Anyway, so then, now why didn't it move? Control D. So is yours doing the same thing as mine?
Mhm.
Now when I go in, Control Z, used to be that we could click. Again, there may be small changes to the program that we're going to discover as we go because they update now every single semester. So you can't transform it. Okay, so I'm going to Control D. So you should be able to. Do you have the grid turned on? So that's in View, and then Show, and then just click on Grid. And at least we have some sort of a guideline as far as what's straight, what's not straight. Okay, so we'll keep that on. And then to transform the size, so are you still over on Grizz Huge Flag and can't transform it? Whoever said that?
No, I'm on that.
Okay, so we've all copied and pasted it over here. Okay. Let me, without selecting. Okay, so if you go to, just make sure you're on layer 1, which is America. So if you're on that layer, go to Edit and then Free Transform. And then you should get the sizing handles. We'll probably end up making this smaller, but then we should get that curly handle for rotating. Now it used to be that, again, I could Control click on that and I could still transform it around. But anyway, so you're just kind of looking again as you move it. Now this is a little smoother movement, isn't it? I can get it probably pretty exact. And then when you're happy with it, okay for there. We may actually want to transform this smaller. So again, you can free transform and just move it smaller. So it should still stay connected nicely to the grid. But get it, maybe we can do maybe 3 to 4 squares large, maybe 4 squares large, approximately. It'll be big, but that's okay. So move it approximately 4 squares, and then you can pick it up. So it's going to be straight now, no matter where we move it. Should be pretty good. And then we'll leave that grid on for now as we move things in. So a little bit of the problem with this, when we brought it in, it came in with a white background because that was the default that we chose. And it's kind of difficult now because of the flag with the white. It's really kind of difficult to make out where the edges are, okay? So there's multiple things you could do with this. I mean, I could Control click it, and I could go, there's Edit, and I can add a stroke to it, but there's some other tools that give you some opportunities to maybe even make it have more depth than just adding pixels around the outside. So that's always one option that you have. I'm going to Control D that again. So on layer 1, do you see the little FX at the bottom on the layers panel? It's effects is what that is, but FX. And it says add a layer style, and it's got a little drop down, meaning that there's stuff inside there, so there's more than just one option. And blending options we'll go through later today, but there's bevel and emboss, stroke, da 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 da. So let's check and see what each of those are. So first of all, click on bevel and emboss. And you may have to move your box out of the way to kind of see what's going on here. So I want you to be able to see the lettering. And notice also that bevel and emboss has a check mark by it, okay? And I'm also on bevel and emboss. I can turn stroke on or off and not be on the layer. Does that make sense? I can turn something on or off, color overlay, but I can't manipulate color overlay till I actually click on that. So I'm going to turn that off again. We're on bevel and emboss. There's inner bevel and emboss and pillow emboss. There's all sorts of different types of embosses that you may or may not like. There's a depth you can change, size, soften it. There's angles of the shading, the color that's multiplying. So all sorts of things that you can adjust, okay? I can also add contour and or texture. Okay, so you're playing with it, you do what you want to do. So I'm leaving mine, but do something. Click to stroke. So as long as I leave bevel and emboss on, I can turn it on or off. But as long as I click on stroke, I can now manipulate the size of the stroke. And I could do something that looks silly, like 10. So that looks too dark. It looks kind of childlike and not professional. 1 gives it at least some definition. I can see what 2 looks like. 2 maybe is too much. So it depends on what you like, but maybe you just want something that's very light that gives you some definition. And there's also stroke that's from the outside that you might like better, the inside or center. So again, they change the look of it by just a little bit. And then you can change the color of the stroke. You can even change the opacity of the stroke if you feel like that's a little bit deep. So you can change the opacity of that stroke if you want. I'll leave mine up. Okay, some of the other ones, inner shadow, it kind of depends on the image that you have. Sometimes the shadows don't, you know, with color selections and whatever other options you have, it's kind of difficult to tell exactly what it is. Inner shadow, you can click it on or off, and it's really, I think maybe if we take bevel and emboss off, yeah, this one, you can see a little, it's not much. And maybe if I make that deeper, so you can kind of see it on the E. So again, I don't think I'm going to worry too much about that one. That doesn't do enough, I think, for my purposes to change it. Inner glow. And again, this is really light. The glow color is white. You could make the glow color yellow if you think so, if it's a warm tone you're after. And again, for my particular image, there's a very, very slight difference here. I don't know that inner glow gives me anything that I like very much. So I'm going to not use that one. Satin, and it kind of gives it a satiny tone. But again, I can choose a different color if I want to. I could choose a pink and then okay, and it gives me a pink satiny tone. Okay, I mean, I don't like that, but you get the point. And it's multiplying. Remember how that multiply works? It takes both layers and multiplies the tones together. And again, I can change the color of the pink. So I don't like that either. The color overlay, again, the defaults are gray, tones gray. So I could do a color overlay of blue. Okay, and then I can manipulate my opacity if I really want to. Again, I don't like that either. Gradient overlay, exactly the same thing. And there's some kind of fun gradients that are already available for you. color to transparency, so I can get a blue color to no colors, black to white, Christmas. These are nice that you can change the tones easily. If you click, so if you choose one of them, I'll do that again. So I'm just choosing one. It's a color to a color to a color. Okay, and then if you click back on that, you see the little sliders here. I can move the sliders around, or I can just flat choose a different color. So if I kind of like the fall tones, but maybe I want a little more rusty tone, then I can choose, you know, something that's more rust. Okay, so now I've got, you know, a 3-tone type of deal. And if I want a little bit more of the rust, actually maybe, so less of the yellow, I can move my little diamonds around, and it's kind of a fall. So if you have leaves or something, that looks like those candy corns, doesn't it? Just a little bit. Must be lunchtime. Anyway, so I don't particularly like that either. Again, I can change my blending modes or the opacity. Pattern overlay, there's default patterns. You can make your own pattern. So there's this little guy right there. I can create a new pattern. I could have soccer balls and create a soccer ball pattern, and that would be my choice. So you can do anything you want. Again, you've got opacity. So if I kind of like that texture, but I don't want much of it, I can change it. Again, I don't really like that very much. Outer glow would be really easy to see if this was on a black background. Does that make sense? So outer glow goes outside. Again, this is not a good use for this particular image. Drop shadow might be something that you like. Again, you might need to move your box out of the way a little bit. I can change the distance of it. I can change the angle of it. So if I want to make the shadow go one way or another, I can change the spread and the size. So might be something, you know, again, do you like that better? Do you not like that? You can choose. And the color can be adjusted as well. I think probably with the shadow, that direction is better. Do you think? Because my color, so the bevel and emboss seems to be giving me color inside here, deeper color there. I feel like it's better for my shadow to be outside, to the lower left. So I might say okay to all those, and then see what you get here, which is kind of fun. I can choose to turn all my effects off with a little eyeball, or I can say, you know, I really don't like that drop shadow. I can keep the setting there, but I can turn it on or off. So that's kind of nice, same with any of them. Okay, there's something else too that some students kind of like, and it's just a little harder edge, I think. So if you go back to your America, remember how we could control click on that tiny little thumbnail? So reselect America, okay? Now if I want to create kind of my own drop shadow, if you're not really happy with the effects, you can create something that's your own. So I can create a new layer. And that's right, you know, where the trash can's at. I want to go one to the left. It says create new layer. And you can see that I've got a checkerboard layer there. Okay, and I'm going to turn everything else off just so that you can see what's going on there. So I've got my little dots going for America, and I'm on layer 2. Is everybody there? Okay, so if you go edit and then fill, I want to fill with, actually in this case, black. I could fill it with the blue. So my foreground color in this case, remember I chose blue. That was probably the last thing I did. I could fill it with blue. I could fill it with white as defaults. I can go to the color picker and I can pick anything in the spectrum. content aware, pattern, or history, or I can do black or gray or white. So those are kind of my choices. But if I want to go ahead and do black and then okay, so I have this hard-edged America here. So edit, fill with black. And then I can control D because I don't really need to have it highlighted anymore. And then I'm going to use my move tool, and I might not be too sure where I want to move this yet. So I might just want to move it slightly out of the way because I know it's going to have to be behind America. So, or, you know, I don't want it to be on top of, in other words, one on top of the other. And where I place it is going to vary, but I want to put it behind, so it's going to be behind my America layer, the colored one. So I just have to click, and again, if you want the background on to help you, that's okay. So I can click and pull that down, and then it's behind, and then again, I still have my move tool. So I'm only moving stuff on layer 2 if I'm happy with where layer 1's at. And then if it's really hard to get to, I can arrow key it around just little by little if I want just a little shadow. And again, so you can create, if you want that hard-edged shadow, you can certainly do something that's like that.
Can you tell me how to put behind again?
How to move it behind? Yeah. So when you have a layer, I'll move mine back to the top here. So you want to click hold the layer that has the black on it, pull down. You have to pull far enough down that you get the double-headed blue. Yep.
Into the back.
Yep. So it almost looks like it goes into the background layer, but it doesn't. Yep. And again, you can still, now the drop shadow doesn't really do much of anything now, but if I don't like the stroke anymore, or I don't like the bevel and emboss anymore, so you can still change those. The other thing that you might want to do, so go ahead and turn off the eyeball on your background layer. So if you're really super happy with this and you don't want to mess it up, you might want to group the layers to merge them so that they move as one, because if they aren't grouped, you move them around and it's like, dang it, I moved that, I don't want to move it. So unselect the visibility on the background, and then you should see there's a little tiny, right on your layers, channels, paths, that little forward lined deal there. Click on that, and you should see merge visible. So the visible means the ones with the eyeball. Okay, and now that has become one. With my four-headed arrow, again, that's my move tool. I can click and drag that around. And I can still make it bigger or smaller, so my transform is still available. It's now just one unit. You can save it, you know, if you're concerned about your path of what if I want to go back. So you may want to save maybe in folders, or save a couple of different image, you know, the PSD, so that you have all your layers and then your merged one. I guess that depends on if you have partners you're working with or you're showing a client or something like that, just so you can go back. We can always edit undo now, but if we save this file, there isn't an unmerge visible that you did a long time ago. Okay, so we did that. So that's really kind of the, I guess, what I wanted to show you with that. You see it a lot with plants. Colin Henderson works with bees, and they have a publication called, I think they're View, and oftentimes there's cool little, you know, close-ups of bees that are inside there. So it's a fun, you see it often. So we're done with this file. As far as the Grizz Huge Flag, we can close that one. We don't need to save the Grizz Huge Flag because we've got our other one. While we're here, though, let's go ahead and save. So this is kind of our blending modes practice one. So let's do File, Save As for the America. And blending modes, FX, because we've done effects, underscore, type. because we did some type stuff. And this, I think we'll be doing more healing, so maybe heal, you know, healing tools. Okay. And then save. Compatibility okay. All the other Adobe applications, yep. So then let's go to our folder and let's open Rock 2. So that's, again, you can do your right mouse, open with, and Photoshop. We may want to get rid of the grid here. So view, show, undo grid. That was messy. So this one is just a really good one for cleaning up. So is this a good photo? Absolutely not. So I don't think you'd want to use anything in here. I don't know. The texture of the rock might be fun, but it has some opportunity for cleanup, which works good. So let's do a Control+ and view ourselves pretty close to this bottom side. I want you to see the rock and the little tarpy stuff and all that garbage. So let's say this rock is like what you want to capture for whatever reason. So we want to finish the rock, and we've got a tarp in the way, and maybe we even want to finish the grass. This one's going to be a little bit harder to work with the clone stamp, but let's go ahead and give it a go here. So clone stamp tool that we've used before. In this case, we want a fairly large brush, and I currently have an 80 pixel. I think that's probably pretty good. The rock actually, do you think that it's a soft, feathery rock or a hard-edged rock? I would say hard-edged, okay? So we may even be able to go to 100%. Maybe not quite, but pretty darn close. We want to be more towards the hard edge for sure. And we do want, if you check your opacity and flow, so I do want you to paint 100%. We don't want anything behind it. Okay? So just as you've done before, remember with the clone stamp, you Alt-click to borrow pixels, and you may not want an 80 pixel brush. I may want to go down to about 60. So maybe I want to borrow this stuff here, so I can Alt-click on it and then paint it down, and you may have to do little by little. And you can almost kind of match things up. So you want to get to where you can't really tell that there was anything else there. I already have a little bit of the grass there. So the grass is the bigger challenge because there's not very much of it right here. So you probably are going to tell a little bit that it's kind of a copy-paste deal. But again, I can try to use some of the contour here, you know, to get rid of some stuff. But eventually life catches up with you on the grass. And did you notice, I don't know if you've had much experience with this tool, but sometimes if you go too far, you start copying the same thing that you're trying to get rid of. There's just not enough grass to give you a lot of change here. There, that's not too bad, but can you see that it looks kind of duplicated there? So the other thing you could do, you could borrow, there's gravel over there. If you felt like you wanted to take some gravel and move it over, you could do that too. Anyway, your goal is to get kind of a rock that looks like a rock all the way down. So you got rid of the garbage. The other one, and this one's kind of fun too, and you might want to zoom in a little bit more here. This one's pretty easy because really like the tree is the tree, but it gets harder where the different colors of the rock and the stick combine there. You really need kind of a small brush here, probably in the 20s. And again, I would say similar hardness. I'd probably even go just, this is a little bit of a fuzzy picture, so you can probably get away with, you know, some pixelation, but pretty easy to take the tree part, but a little harder to copy the rock part. So again, you can kind of alt click and then you can match up as you go a little bit in some areas. Try to make it look like it's the rock. And, oh, and you can even match up the little stripes. There, almost done. There. So we got this really beautiful picture now. Okay, so take, I guess maybe use your square, so the rectangle tool. Take part of the tree down through your rock, kind of into the grass. Control C. Let's go to your blending modes file. Control V. It's going to be quite large. So let's go to, I think actually it's, yeah, it's way too large. So it's way bigger than even the image. So it's taller, if you can see that with my move tool. I'm moving it around. So you can go to edit and then free transform. You can see the borders are actually outside. So let's make this quite small. We don't need to make it very big. And I guess it could just about fit there. Okay, it should be behind everything. So something like that. So this is kind of our practice. We may have to move America around a little bit. Then let's do a file save just because we made one more change. We don't need to have Rock 2 active anymore, so go ahead and close that down. Don't need to save Rock 2. And then there's two files that I'd like you to open. So one's called Rust, and then the other one is the USS Bowfin Drain. So go ahead and open both of those. And the grid, especially for the bowfin, let's go back to view, show, and turn off that grid. So quite a lot of years ago, I went to Hawaii. Has anybody ever been to the USS Bowfin in Hawaii? So we went to Pearl Harbor, which is, and that's an amazing place to go see. But the whole concept of being inside a submarine, feet below water, and it's really little, and everything's compact, and you're on top of one another, and it's dark. It was like, wow, these guys are tough, and gals that are in our armed forces serving in submarines. So if I just wanted to select out the drain part of this, and what I want to do is kind of, and maybe we want to get rid of that grid too here. It's not going to really matter on this particular image. It just, some of them, the grid's super helpful. Some of them it's not so helpful. So we're going to end up, and the drain is 25%. So again, image size. This drain is quite large, 4,000 pixels by, okay, so that's a big one. Versus the rest, which is only a few hundred, so 1,000 by 700. So quite a bit different in size. So we'll move one to the other. This was from, so I don't know if you know, the university has kind of a boneyard in their facilities area. And I took a class one time, again, it's been some years ago, but they let us run around the boneyard. They've got like old golf carts that are pretty cool and rusty things and just stuff. And so you end up taking pictures of fun stuff, you know, they're old things. So that's kind of where that came from. So what tool would you begin to use to select if we just want the drain? I would say the elliptical marquee would be the best. I mean, if you really kind of look at this and you go, well, what about the magnetic lasso? I think that you're going to have some fuzzy selections here. Might be high contrast in certain areas, but then I think it's going to get fuzzy. So I think you're right. Let's go ahead and start with that elliptical marquee tool. And we could hold a shift key down, or just, you know, shift key makes a perfect circle. Theoretically, this should be a perfect circle, but was I standing right on top of it to make a picture of a perfect circle? Probably not. But we can try it. So we get, you know, our circle, and then remember to move that. You can go to select transform selection, and we can first kind of get it a little bit closer. And remember, arrow key up, down, left, right kind of gets you close. And then our control key on the keyboard, and we want to skew it in so that we just have, oops, I just hit another button. There we go. So that we have a pretty good selection. There was a little skewing. So I think I'm pretty happy so far with this circle. So get to the point where you feel pretty good about it, and then go ahead and enter key, because that's, you know, your so far selection. And then remember, we do need to add to this selection. If we want to get rid of the innards, and you know, that might be something I don't want to work on that because that might take too long today. But if we wanted to get rid of the innards, that's a whole new, so that's subtract from, right? Because we have a perfect circle right now-ish, circle. And if we wanted to go inside and remove those innards, then we would have to subtract from. But to get these little tiny drain handle, whatever you call those things, we do need to choose a different tool. I don't think the elliptical is probably our best option here. We may want to try the polygonal lasso tool, potentially. In some areas, it might give us a hard selection. Otherwise, we may have to go to the straight old lasso tool and test our own skill at clicking and dragging. We could try that. And again, I'm going to add two. I don't want it to be a new selection because I'm pretty happy with what I have. And I want a 0 pixel feather. We'll keep trying that one. So again, this one I kind of, again, you're supposed to, yeah, this isn't going to work. Do you see that? So I'm going to control Z that. I think we're going to have to just use the old lasso tool, which is a bummer. But still, second box, add to my selection. Do your best. And you only have to start inside and connect back inside when you're adding two. That's probably not too bad. Remember that if you've got a slightly too big or too small area, you can do slight expansions of your selection or slight contracting of your selection. Or feathering if you think that you need a little smoothing, or smoothing. You could try smoothing too. But I think we're good to go. So how are you doing? So far, so good? So when you're happy with it, we want to do a Control C. Going to go to our rust, Control V. Convert colors, okay. Oops. So remember, we knew it was going to be a lot bigger, but we'll fix that in a minute. That work okay? Control C, Control V to get it in here. Then you can do edit and you can go to free transform. This is really large. I could actually start with my percentages here to bring it down. Type something in. I can also just kind of click, and you have to be careful where you click and drag. You want to make sure you can still see the picture, but you're just bringing it in. And then where you want to put it, and let's make sure that the whole thing fits. And then, you know, where you want to put it in the rust is going to be, you know, your choice. Again, if I want it perfectly centered, I can either open my grid back up, or I can just arrow key. Remember, arrow key is your friend. If you want to rotate it, so if you want the text, you know, whether you want open to be on top, or you want the drink, you know, purifier sludge. Doesn't that sound good? Ooh. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking when I took that picture, I guess. I kind of like the drain though. Anyway, you can get this however, rotate it how you like. And then the blending modes are kind of fun. So we have, again, the visibility for both of them. And you can try, dissolve doesn't do anything. We can just land on them. But what you do too, so there's darker, but again, if I change the opacity, that changes it. Fill, I think, is pretty much, it does about the same thing, similar. Anyway, we'll go back to all the blending modes so that you can try them. But multiply, I kind of like that because you see, you know, quite a bit of it. Some of them we might like better than others. Linear, darker color, lighten, screen. overlay. I think hard light actually I might like best in this one. I feel like I can still see the type, whereas on, what was it, darken, multiply, multiply is not bad, multiply, and yeah, there's a difference. Multiply is, the whole thing is darker. Hard light keeps the shiny part, I guess. Vivid. Linear, you can definitely read it with linear. Pin, hard mix, and then there's, you know, some of the unusual ones. Is it? Yeah. So you can really see the colors that, yeah, that one is a cool one. That one's kind of a surprise. That one, does it turn, is it the grayscale? So it allows it to show through, but I think, does the front layer then have the grayscale? I don't know. Anyway, pick one that you think you like. And then again, we aren't, you know, we can copy this whole thing, but we can merge visible if you want it to be one unit. If you're happy with it, you can always keep separate layers. Flattening the image means that you want to, so all the layers are going to close down and flatten. So that's when you're ready for the JPEG or the PNG or the, you know, whatever you're going to do with it. But at this point, we should be able to Control A, Control C, and go into your other document, Control V, and it didn't take the whole thing. Control Z that. So we may need to flatten it. So I'll Control D for now. Go ahead, and if you need to merge, merge down is top down, obviously. Visible is eyeballs, they're both on. So now it should Control A, Control C, Control V. Now I've got everything. So again, it's too big. So I've got to do my free transform and then just go ahead and fit it in the document. And then you can place America where you think it should be placed on the page. And we don't really probably need our grid anymore, if that helps to view it without. So this is just a little montage of stuff we did today. So this is your 5-pointer. And again, we can go ahead and save it. For upload purposes, how big is this? Yeah, we can probably make it quite small. I mean, basically, I want to view to see that, you know, you're able to accomplish changes made. We could even go to 72 pixels. If you changed it to 72 pixels per inch resolution, it drops it down, leaving resample on at automatic. It drops the physical size down, and it's also going to drop probably the resolution down. I'm at 67%. We can go to view 100%. That's the size that it would be. It's big enough for me to see what you did, so I'm okay with that. Again, that was image size. I left resample on, I left it at automatic and just went, so I changed the higher resolution down to 72. And it automatically, that's the only thing I did. Resolution 72, and it automatically changed my width and my height. And then I just viewed it at 100% just so I can see, make sure that I can see everything. So lots of fun tools in Photoshop. Lots of ways for you to create things that are new and unique. using, you know, existing images if you're out and about taking pictures. Kind of fun to try different tools in Photoshop and see what you get. Okay, so when you save that, you want to upload it in Moodle. And again, that's in week October 14 through 20. There's a Photoshop tools, blending modes, and more 5-pointer. So go ahead and upload it to there. Yeah. Yep. So just this collage image. Yeah. And just you should be good with one file because it's all a collage. So we should be, I probably have multiple files in there, but you don't need to do multiple, just the one. Any problems or issues with uploading so far? Huh?
Still behind here.
Still, oh, okay. Just wanted to go, so we've got just a couple of minutes in the class, and I know if some of you are finishing the Photoshop, that's okay, you can then upload it later. So your website, I'd like you to do like a little planning document, and I'll go ahead and open that. And you'll have a persona and a web plan. So what you'll do, this is for your personal website. So really from now on, we're starting on your stuff. And we're going to be using some Photoshop days maybe to build your stuff, a banner, pictures, layering, whatever you need to do, as well as Dreamweaver, HTML5, cascading style sheets, all that good stuff. So your web topic, whatever you decide, most likely has a purpose. There's most likely, you know, is it educational? And maybe it's educational from a sporting goods standpoint. You're teaching somebody how to shoot a bow. I don't know. I mean, there could be all sorts of reasons. So it may not be in this, you know, it may be outside of this, but it's kind of in general. And it may be just informative for fun, you know. It could be family oriented. You're posting your family history and you want a family website. That could be what you're doing. And then you want to decide what the goals are for the website. Do I want to increase my personal computer sales by 10%? Do I want word of mouth? Maybe I just want people to be aware that I started a new business. Or maybe I've had a student that had a premature baby and she, not giving out medical advice, she wanted to help others understand what it was like for her when she was a new mom. So, and maybe some things that helped her along the way. So lots of different goals that you may have, whether it's awareness, information, increased sales, something like that. If you could pick any website name, what might it be? And of course, you know, you can go to like register.com or some of those other ones to see if they're available. But kind of start with something like that.
If we already, like I purchased a domain already, can we use that?
Yeah. And then the file name. So we all are going to have an index file. Remember how you had index, contact, resume, activities, professional development, some stuff like that. So yours will relate to whatever you're doing. Frequently asked questions, contact, about me or about us, why we started this business, something like that. And then the title, so our title, remember on each of our pages we created a title like Cheryl Gallopo's hobbies, Cheryl Gallopo's resume, So every page will have a title, but if you could maybe even kind of give yourself some keywords as to what the business name is or the organizational name, and then remember, contact ABC Fast Foods, you know, something like that. So be sure that you just kind of have jot notes down there for yourself so that you remember, oh yeah, I got to title every single page. And then start a list of keywords. Keywords are those searchable words. They can be single words, words and phrases, acronyms if they're really common. I would avoid them normally, but if it's pretty common industry acronyms that somebody would use to search you. And then a description. So the description is who you are, what you do, why you do it, what's important. So it's not, this website is displayed for the purposes of family history. So or something like that. It's the Gallipo family created this website for all members to enjoy and learn about their prior aunts and uncles. I mean, you know, you go on 200, up to 200 years ago. I mean, I don't know, you know. So it's kind of more specific than, it's not a this website is, it's your, whatever it is. Some of you may or may not have a regional consideration. If I have a dog walking company in Missoula, Montana, I probably have a 30-mile, I'm not going to drive to Anaconda and pick up a dog to go walking, you know, I maybe even only a 10-mile radius. So if that's important, then maybe consider putting that in. Your target audience, I may not have time to go over that right now. It's almost time to go. So we may spend then on Thursday, I'll talk about that, but you can either upload 2 separate files or copy and paste your persona information here. I'm okay with either one. I think it's a good idea that you understand your competitor if there are any. And even if I have a dog walking service, I'm sure there's other dog walking services in Missoula. I probably want to know where they go, what they do. Maybe if I have other ideas, what can I do better, or what can I do that serves a different clientele? So know your audience and how you can maybe differentiate yourself or your product from them. Start a list of external links. You do not have to include external links. I would only include external links if they help you. So again, for dog walking, maybe I have a favorite food, like a little bone, and it's really nutritious and healthy and dogs love it and they train 100% with it. I mean, that'll never happen, but you know, if I'm the mom that had a premature baby, maybe I would link to a community medical center, and maybe I would link to resources that are, you know, peer reviewed and have good advice. Text and graphic, I know you're not putting your text and graphics here. I'd like you to think about where you're going to get it. So do I have to type it all out? Do I have a lot of research ahead of me? Is it already kind of located somewhere? So an incomplete website has no text. There's nobody's getting any information from it. So really think about that. People come to a website for reasons. They need to solve a problem. What can you do to help them solve that problem? There has to be enough content there that you're solving their problem. Color schemes, you may get your color scheme from one photo, and honestly, if that's kind of your main marketing photo, or show, you know, demonstrates your colors probably coming from that photo. If you pick some that go together, it might be a really good idea. Weaknesses and strengths. So if there's things that maybe you see on another competitor's website and you're like, man, I want to make sure I don't do that on my website, you might want to just jot notes to yourself. And then strengths or ideas or some things that you come up with along the way, also jot down your strengths that you'll remember. You don't need to draw. Some students like to visualize and map things out. If you're that student, you do not need to submit it, but you certainly can draw it out. So anyway, we'll talk more about this on Thursday. and I'll answer any questions that you have. So I'll stop here today because we're out of time.